What's up, bodybuilding fans? Welcome to Texas Bodybuilding News. I'm your host, Jason Martinez. Today's segment, one-on-one with Jason. Got a good friend of mine, Eric Perkins. Eric Perkins just turned pro last year at the NPC Masters USA's. This was one guy I looked up to. Most people don't know is like I looked up to him because he was already in the bodybuilding scene when I very started in the bodybuilding scene. So let me introduce Eric Perkins, new IFBB Pro from the Valley.
Thank you.
Welcome to Texas Bodybuilding News. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys give us a follow and subscribe to our podcast. Okay, let's give them a little bit of a history lesson about you, how you got into the industry, and I guess most people don't know too. You were 51. You can turn 51.
I'm going to turn 51 in less than a month.
And his career has been over 30 years as a competitor. In the bodybuilding scene.
My first show was 1991, 2022.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I remember before I got into it, I've heard of Eric Perkins, and I remember I would see him at a Cornerstone, gym, when we were there, So, but how did you get into the bodybuilding, life?
So growing up as a kid, I was raised on football. Whole family was about football. But then I ended up moving around a lot, so I didn't quite get to express myself that way because I moved from the Valley to Houston to Miami to Seattle all throughout my high school years. So that kind of got derailed. And I did have some body image issues. I hate to say it, and they were falsely founded. My mom had a term of endearment for me, which was gordito. And my brother's polar opposite of me. He's taller and he's thinner than I am. So he was flaco, right? And so I guess it just weighed on me and I didn't really realize it, So I always thought that I was really heavy set as a kid. And I go back and I look at the pictures when I was a kid. I was not.
But you were a little bigger than your brother, so
that's why there's a comparison, right? But when I wanted to talk about my transformation to a bodybuilder from being overweight, and I couldn't find it. I'm not going. Oh, I wasn't good at. So in any event, I decided to do the practice wrestling team in Washington, in Seattle, Washington. Actually, the Kitsap Peninsula across from Seattle. And I wasn't allowed to compete because I had not lived there for a year yet. UIL has these rules about recruitment and stuff like that. So while I was wrestling, got into pretty good shape, and then there was a show that was being held in Seattle, and I don't remember the exact show it was, but Barry DeMay and Jim Quinn were there, and I freaked out. Jim was a monster. I didn't really want to look like him. He was freaky, but Barry DeMay, he was just amazing.
Was that like an NPC show?
It was an NPC show. So I'm trying to remember the name of the big ones. It was a pretty big one. And so I remember being inspired, and most of the people winning their divisions were coming from this gym called Metropolitan Gym, right? And so it happened to be a gym that's underground, like you have to go down underneath the streets. And I went in there, and it was a serious gym. And I told the owner, I was like, I want to be a bodybuilder. And he's like, well, you're skinny as hell, so I'm putting you with my powerlifters. And so I spent the rest of that year training with the powerlifters, learning to get strong. Although I was avoiding squats, I was doing a lot. I was really good at the deads, okay at the bench. And so then I ended up deciding to come to the Valley because I had not left Texas for more than 5 years. And it turned out I still had in-state tuition for college here. And I was still out-of-state tuition in Washington. So it's cheaper for me to come to school.
Yeah, 60 minutes.
So I ended up coming to the Valley, and my dad lived in San Juan. And first thing I looked for was a gym, and the only gym I found right away was a place called The Workout. And it's
what was that located at?
So if you know where La Plaza Mall is, just west of there, there's a plaza, and it includes Main Place Movie 6. And they used to have Fun Time Pizza there.
Yes, okay.
And in that plaza, there's a place called The Workout. And it was a decent gym. It was good for me to cut my teeth on. And then I found out. So while I was there, right, I was like 19. That there's a Fiero Classic. So I found out that there was another gym called Bodybuilders Gym, right, which was kind of a hole in the wall from what I remember. Uh, and so I have trained at so many gyms. Uh, there was a Gold's that also opened up early in the 90s. It lasted, I don't know how long, a couple of years. It was on 8th Street behind the movies, South End. But eventually I made my way to bodybuilders. And I could say, even though it was grungy, that's probably where I made my best
Well, I
sessions.
don't know. I mean, we just interviewed Lupe, and he talked about that gym, and that was one of the like hardcore
Yeah.
gyms in the valley, and you were a lot of powerlifters there,
Mhm.
and then bodybuilders back then. That gym,
Yeah.
that's one thing I never worked out at the gym. I wish I would have probably gone there.
So I knew I probably needed a tetanus shot when they were correct. But there was just this feel like when I went in, and the dumbbells might have been a little bit treacle or whatever, but I just had like this, oh, let's go, let's go, let's go. So I got in some really good sessions there because that's just the nature of the people that were there. And so it was a very serious gym. And I could say that's when I probably became a bodybuilder, as opposed to just training to try and uh,
What
look better.
what do you how do you define that? Because I always try to tell people that there's between a weightlifter and a bodybuilder. Like you just say you became a bodybuilder. How would you define that? Define that for them.
I had the total mindset that everything in my life was going to go towards eating right, training hard, like thinking about my workouts beforehand, um, and then just the intensity level. Um, I would say when I started out and I said I want to be a bodybuilder, I guess that was for real. But I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have the capacity to do it. Right? I didn't have the energy or the knowledge or anything like that. I did my first show in '91, eating fried chicken sandwiches from Burger King. I don't know if you remember the little long ones with mayo and everything. But I was such a skinny kid that it messed me up. I wasn't as shredded as I thought I was. I had abs and stuff like that. Well, it's funny. At the point of the show, I'm like, man, I look amazing. And then I look at the pictures later on. I'm like, what was I thinking? Right?
And that was a Fiero Classic, and
Yeah.
that was a big local hometown show. It wasn't
Yeah.
sanctioned or anything, but it was very huge down here in the valley.
Yeah.
I did that in '98 or '99. So you did it in '93. So
I did it in '91.
Oh, 91.
Yeah.
So it's
I still have the trooper.
yeah, because it was more like 10 years. I think Lucas said 10 years, 12 years that the show was existent.
Yeah. Usually held, like when I did it, it was held at Club X.
Club X.
Right. I don't know how long it stayed there. I think it stayed there.
When I did the show, it was a Club X.
Yeah.
So they had the bodybuilding show and then nightclub afterwards.
Right.
And did you interact with anybody there? Did you kind of like partner up with somebody to get feedback from somebody, or it was just like all you kind of just started trial and error kind of thing for yourself?
All right. So, like when I was at the workout, I had some buddies from college that they were into lifting also, like Joey Descendis. He never ended up competing, but he was a decent gymnast and he had a decent physique. And he was probably my main training partner for my first years, after I came over here from Seattle. So basically, it was just hanging out with my buddies from college, and we would train together like that. I think by the time I got more serious, I was at the Golds in '93, trying to get ready for the Lackland, and I had met a guy named Roland, and he became my training partner for that. He also never ended up competing, but he was of that mindset, and so I did that show, got second in the novice middles. I do have to say that the previous year from the workout, there was a guy who I looked up to at the workout. He was the big guy in the gym. He looked amazing as far as I thought. And then I went to watch him at the '92 Lackland. And he was in the novice. He weighed 189, I think. So I don't know if that put him. There was only three categories.
There was only three, so they probably would have been
He might have
middle.
been in the
Middle. Yeah, it would have been only three at that time.
And he did not make the top 8, so he wasn't going to pose tonight and stuff like that. And I was in shock. And I remember him telling me, he was all dejected and everything like that. And he goes, Eric, the guy in front of me, I could see the veins in his hamstrings. And it's like, it's crazy. We had never seen that level, right? And so I put in my head, I'm not as big as my buddy here, but when I show up to this thing, I'm going to show up as striated as I can, right? So that's always kind of been my game, trying to try to be the most conditioned person in the show if I can. And so when I did it, I only weighed 183 at 5'11" or whatever I was at the time.
And that was
1993.
93.
1 year later, after I watched, after watching it the year before, and I was motivated to get ready for it. And so I really thought that gave me a new idea of what the conditioning needed to be. And this is still a novice class, right? Not even open class.
Well, I guess because I try to tell my audience and people before, back then, you did novice.
Yeah.
You couldn't go open
Unless
until you novice class. And that's why I tell everybody, the new generation is different now. But back then, novice was our open, I think, now. It was tough. So you had to win your novice before you were, okay to do an open class.
And so I got second in the middles. The guy who won the middles was probably 8 inches shorter than me. But I had really good condition. I think you could almost say I was already striating in the glutes to some degree. And that was my first sanction show, So I was taking the conditioning really serious.
So how did you transition from your first show prep, because you prep yourself, to this one? How did you...
I had done a lot of reading, magazines, stuff like that. And I learned, you eat chicken, but not fried chicken. Right? And just, I guess, off of talking to people in the gym, stuff like that, picking people's brains and stuff like that. I got to meet other bodybuilders, I knew Manny Zeptucha from a child, right? He actually trained in Westlaco, and I think I met him when I was in like 6th grade. And he put me there on the side while he was training someone else, but he gave me a little dumbbell to play with, right? I wasn't really ready to train at that time. And just picking people's brains, reading all the major magazines, because back then there was no...
That was our media. That was our social media.
Flex magazine, Iron Man magazine, Muscular Development. Let's see, it's Muscle and Fitness, Robert Kennedy's Muscle Magazine, which I actually got to be in. And so, and then applying it. It may have been bro-ish, but it was working slowly but surely. And so 93, I looked better than 91, obviously. But still, when I go back and I look at it, I'm like, gosh, it was not what I thought it was, right? And so then 95, a buddy of mine was actually putting on the South Padre Island. And I had mixed feelings about that because he was the promoter, but I didn't want any favors or anything. Ruben Ramirez, big influence in my life, probably my best friend ever. And so anyway, he was the promoter for the South Padre Island. It was the first South Padre Island. And so I had competed in 93. I used 94 to grow. And in summer of 95, decided to do the island. And I won the heavy novice, right? I don't know if there was any open competitors that year. I don't remember. Might have only had novice. And then some guy from San Antonio, I believe, won the novice middle, which he was actually thicker than me. But I think his lower body was not very conditioned. And then I don't really remember what the light weight was like. But I know that middleweight was probably upset because he probably had more muscle than I did. I weighed in at 199 at that show, so I was much bigger.
Barely made the cutoff,
right? Because it was a 3-division contest, right?
It was the regular show. It wasn't national qualifier or anything.
Right. So anything over 189, I guess it's heavyweights. And so I was in the heavyweights, and I don't know what he weighed in at, but he was quite a bit shorter than me, so he might not have approached the heavies. But I managed to pull that one off, which allowed me to finally do my first open show. And that was, that's the first time where I was intimidated. I showed up there, I weighed, I don't remember if it was 207 or 209. I showed up late because I was already working as a teacher. And I didn't want to miss work, so I caught a flight. It was being held in Dallas. And this was 1996, 1 year later. I think it was in October, or somewhere around there. And so they allowed me to weigh in late. Weighed in at 209, which was the heaviest I'd ever been. My condition was pretty good. But Ruben was there. He got there before me. He's like, Eric, you look great. These guys are monsters. And so there was no super heavyweight class back then. Super heavyweight was added in after 96. And so I was in a class where there were guys weighing 242, 233, big boys. And actually the guy who won was only 220, 222 or something like that. His name was Johnny Crook. And I remember his abs were as big as my pecs.
Popping out.
And Gary Abrams, there was a shadow casted over his knee by his quads. They're just these monsters. But my big failing at that one, this was a learning experience. In years prior, I always heard, oh, you can't get too dark. Right? Paint yourself dark. And that's going to show up more on stage. Well, at the Texas, they used the black drapes in the back. At least back then they did. And so I looked like an actual middleweight when I went out in the morning. Because all you could see were the whites of my eyes and the white of my teeth. Right? Because we used Jantana.
Which they don't allow that.
Which was thicker. And I think it's not very translucent or something like that. So it almost looked like I was painted or varnished, like burnished furniture or something. Yeah. And we were so excited about it. You guys were like, dude, you're dark. You can't be too dark, so this is awesome. And no, huge mistake. I looked horrible. So when I got off stage there's only, I want to say 12 guys in that class. I was pretty sure I didn't make top 5 is what I was thinking. So we went to TGI Fridays. I think I had 7 Dr. Peppers and Death by Chocolate, cake, bacon cheeseburger, whatever. And I went to the hotel room and I washed everything off. Right. I was going to show up at the night show, right? But I was not going to. Same. And lo and behold, I got 5th place. So I was called out into the top 5. And I remember Deshae Ebert. She was the chairperson at the time. Yeah. She looked at me. She's like, you should have looked like that in the morning. You didn't look like that in the morning, right? And so I was like, wow. And so I remember the next day, as I'm in the lobby of the hotel. So yeah, I got 5th. I'm like freaking out at the vascularity in my legs and how full I looked and everything. And so I think that's the first time I realized you got to eat a little bit to get the fullness, that you need to compare with some of these bigger guys. And so I knew at that point I needed to be less careful. I don't want to say less careful, more aggressive, I guess, in my final week of trying to fill out. Right. I didn't understand that prior to then. Yeah. And that next day look, which I'm sure everybody has experienced.
I think a lot of it too is you're not as stressed. I think the cortisol levels as a show. Right. The night prior to, you don't sleep much. I don't sleep much. Mm-hmm. I think so you're stressed out. You let your body just chill. You eat some good food. You're not worrying about getting on stage. I think all that combination, it does help, because I think sometimes if you overdo it, you can overfill.
So that Texas, I actually got ready for it while at Bodybuilders. And so I could say that that's when I was like full blown going after it, because it's what I wanted. Getting 5th, I don't want to come off like some immature guy over here, but I remember winning the Fiero, and I didn't really have any muscle at all. I remember my stepfather telling me it's probably the worst thing that could have happened to you. It's like, what do you mean by that? Because you won on your first try. It's not what's going to happen when you do it. Yeah, right? And so I had already gone second at the Lackland, but that felt like a victory to me. I had won the golds prior to the Lackland, but that didn't mean much to me as a local show. It wasn't sanctioned. But placing second at the Lackland meant a lot to me because I saw how difficult it was the year before. Going to the Texas, I was truly intimidated but I kind of felt also getting fifth. I don't know how much of it was due to the coloring issue for prejudging, but I was already getting deep into my career and building my family. That was the first time I decided, I think I'm done. Like, maybe I'm not good enough to do this.
And what do you mean by career? What were you doing at the time?
Teaching.
Okay.
Yeah, I started teaching pretty young, 22 years of age, but I was becoming more involved with my work. And so I was at a crossroads. I was like, am I continuing with this bodybuilding thing, or are we trying to start a family? And so we started trying to start a family. And so I had a couple of kids. And meanwhile, Lou Zwick from American Muscle Magazine and Musclemania notoriety, he would contact me ever since I won the island. And he was always interested in finding talent. He would ask me, have I seen anybody? He would look for talent. I remember mentioning some names to him, right? But in any event, when I retired in 96, I was basically, and there was no gyms at that time who really had daycares. I couldn't really think. So I had my kids, and so I wasn't really working out during those years. And then in 98, Cornerstone opened, right? And they had daycare. So I made my return to working out again. And I went ahead and called Lou Zwick and said I was interested. And so they do the Musclemania production. It's a drug-tested show. And so I did the 1999 Musclemania World Championships. The size of the show was intimidating. Not so much.
Where was it held at?
In LA.
LA.
Anaheim. No, the first year was Redondo Beach. The second year was Anaheim. But they're real close to each other in California. And there were some guys there that are famous now at that show, at the 99. There's the Raymond brothers, including Jose Raymond, Stan McQuay. These are guys that ended up going pro in the IFBB shortly thereafter. And so I did that show, and I got fifth on stage in the light heavyweights. But because it's all about production, that show was a lot of hurry up and wait. Like, it didn't run like a normal show. You were backstage for hours. And you had to be ready to run up and do whatever they needed you to do at any given time. And so when I finally back home, I'm like, well, I got fifth, at Musclemania World. And there was a lot of guys. There had to be well over 20 guys in that. So I felt pretty good about the fifth. And then I got a call from them. They said, hey, when this thing airs on ESPN, you're going to be announced as third. And so it turned out that the guy who got first and the guy who got second, they did seem pretty thick to me, right? But I was just impressed. But it turned out that they had something in their system that wasn't allowed for that show.
They tested positive.
Yeah. And so I got bumped to third. So I was motivated to try it again the next year. It's like, all right, so maybe I can bump up again. So the following year, 2000, I did it again. Interestingly, you hear about spot reduction is a myth kind of thing, right? I had not really trained my abs for the 99 show, but I got really striated. Like, at that point, it was the leanest I had ever been. But the following year, I didn't get quite as lean, maybe 1%, fatter. But I trained my abs like every day. And in the video, you could just see that whether I was breathing heavy or not, my abs were in like bold relief. So it's like, just having the thickness of the muscle does make a difference whether you're leaner. Quite as lean, just having that extra thickness in the ab muscle made the tendons sit a little tighter.
Popped up.
Right. So I was real happy with that. Got third again. Well, at least it was third on stage this time, right? So I was kind of hoping to get another phone call, right? But no, I didn't get the phone call, right? I kept third. And so then I was done again. I tried it a couple times. It's expensive to do that show. Traveling, and you're out for like almost a week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a full week thing.
Why is it so long? What do they do?
Well, I won't say full week. It's like, you got to be there by Wednesday, right? You got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Are they doing like photo shoots and stuff like that, or what?
Yeah, it's all about TV production. And there's so many competitors. That was the intimidating thing for that
I
show.
mean, I guess you guys think of this international competitors, right?
Right. It's, yeah,
It's
from all over the
international.
country. Yeah. So like the guy who got second was from Malaysia. The guy who won, he was supposedly from Germany, although he resided in Las Vegas, I think. Then the guy in fourth was from Cuba, and me from Cali. Right. So it kind of feels funny there, right?
So you retired again.
Yeah, right. And so I was just going about my family life and teaching again. And then I want to say it was 2004. You probably know him, Aaron Garza. He owned, I guess it was Pump Nutrition.
Was it Pump already?
And so
it
was different names, right?
It was Muscle Tech, and then it became Pump Nutrition.
Right.
So I don't remember the years.
And then he had the gym.
The Pump. So then it was Pump Nutrition. Did you have Pump Nutrition? Pump.
I just remember that in 2004, I heard that he got second at nationals in the light heavies behind Rock Shabazz or something like that. And that just got me amped up. So I know there's this thing sometimes, I'm happy to see the camaraderie that's going on. But sometimes when there's a couple of guys that are all doing well, you may not hang out with each other, right? And so I never knew how so-and-so felt about me or anything like that. Because I'm kind of to myself, I'm doing my regular work away from bodybuilding. But I remember I'm like a fan of all of them. I was a fan of you. I was a fan of Aaron. And so when I heard good things, that motivated me. You're like, man.
Well, I think Aaron motivated me too. He was one of my guys I looked up to too, because when I got into the bodybuilding, he was kind of coaching me, helping me, giving me tips. And same thing, man. I thought he was gonna get pro, man. He was phenomenal.
He had it if he wanted.
He was phenomenal,
And so that motivated me to go back for it. And so I wanted to do the Texas again. So if you remember in 1996, the last time I did the Texas, I took 2005 to try and gain my weight back. 2006, I decided to do the Texas. I decided a year and a half before. I started prepping for the Texas in 2006. And I was able to compete and win my open division as a heavyweight. And it's another case of apples versus oranges. I'm there standing probably close to 5'11", and I weighed in at 20. Man, I remember it's like 207, 209, something like that. And the guy who got second was so much bigger than me, like 8 inches shorter than me, and I think he weighed 217. But he wasn't in condition. But man, his muscles were huge. Pallet boxes, Jason pallet boxes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is another beast, right? And so, but he only weighed 217, so he wasn't the heavies. So I managed to win class. Anthony De La Garza, he won the light heavies that year. So it was good to have a familiar face there, right? And so, but we both lost the overall to Lorenzo Jones.
Got it. I've competed against Lorenzo. Before. Yeah.
So, but I got revenge on Lorenzo a few years later, but then he turned pro right away after that. So yeah, that was exciting for me. I was able to take on a monster and be favored. I was okay with not winning the overall because I was so excited that I just won my division. And I was like, all right, I want to do nationals, right? Because I qualified for nationals by winning them. And so I did the 2007 nationals. Came in even heavier. I weighed 211, super striated, probably comparable to what I had done at the Musclemania in 99. But I was standing next to guys like Dorothy Sherry, Brandon Curry, who, if you know, Mr. Olympia, right? And mind you, he was only a heavyweight back then, right? I think he weighed 220 something. But man, like there's a different level of genetics sometimes, right? And mine is not that level. And so I was real happy with my condition, but that was another one of those intimidating things, this time both in terms of the other competitors and in terms of the size of the event. And there was like 36 guys in the class. All of them looked amazing. Like, I don't remember.
I think the quality back then, because it was just bodybuilding. There was no men's physique. There was no not classic. There was just strictly bodybuilding. And the national level at that time was just a different ballgame. It was.
And so I got the 16th place, right? Which is given to everybody.
Everybody after 16.
Everybody is 16. So I was like, oh my gosh. I went home from that one with my dad. It was a long ride home because that one was in Dallas. And I think they used to rotate between Atlanta.
I wish they would do that again,
Yeah.
because I remember going to one in Dallas. What year was that you competed?
2007.
Okay.
Evan Centopani won the super heavy and the overall. That one. I think Brandon got second in the heavies, and Adorthos Cherry won the heavies. Great structure, but I don't think he ever did anything after that. And of course, Brandon went on to be who he is. But I went home with my tail between my legs. My family, my dad and my brother were the only ones who went to that show with me. And my family had like a brisket dinner ready for me when I got back. So I was licking my wounds while I was eating brisket. And so I took 2008 to just continue off season, right? And I had in my mind that I was going to do the Texas again to try and qualify for nationals. And when I did the 2009 Texas, that's the first time I felt like I'm the big guy. I had never felt that before. When I walked into that show, I was like close to 230, 231, 1 week away from that show. Somehow I lost a lot of water weight and managed to weigh in at 217. But even at that, just walking backstage, this time I was not the guy with the eyes wide open, kind of like freaking out. I was like there, like I kind of knew that I was for sure going to be in the running, and I was pretty sure that it was going to be mine. It's the first time I've ever had that kind of feeling, and it felt amazing. And that's because I was going through some bad personal issues due to my fault. But
did you still prep through all that?
I prepped it. Yeah, because I was so driven. Like I wanted it bad, and so anyway, I won the heavy. I won the overall. I did seek feedback. We used to be told to give a postcard to the judge.
Yeah.
And usually they'll tell you, oh, you need to work on this or that or the other. And all they put on my card was go to nationals. So I was like, and I would have liked some feedback. It would have helped. But
I still give you credit. I mean, that's a title, to hold, Mr. Texas.
Right.
Champion 2009. That's it's one every year.
Yeah.
One a year.
Yeah. And so
so they told you to go to nationals, Eric.
And I didn't go because of the aforementioned personal issues I was going through, and I went through a big, huge life adjustment at that time. And so I left bodybuilding again in 2010. I was just busy working, switched back to being a teacher.
That could have been your year, bro.
It could have been if I stayed the course, right? But I've done that waffling throughout my whole career. Like I'm on and on. And so when I started teaching again, I was teaching in Edinburgh, and I was still doing personal training on the side to make ends meet, stuff like that.
What do you mean again?
So I left teaching.
Okay.
I had become an administrator for a while, and then I became an education consultant for a while. And our family also had a couple of daycares, and then I was managing the gym in Uptown. And so I was doing lots of other things. So I was out of education, tied to a district. I was still doing the consultant work from 2004 to 2010.
Okay.
And so I decided to go back to teaching because I felt like I needed to ground myself again. I think I had gotten too big-headed. And so...
I didn't know you managed Uptown.
Yeah.
How long did you manage it?
About 2 years.
Okay.
It was when it was still behind Peppers and nobody could see it.
The original location.
Right. And so I stayed managing it as we moved into the old Hastings store. our intent.
That back then it was Marco. Who was the owner that owned back there?
As far as the two at Uptown, it was Dr. Esparza, Barbara Guerra, and Mr. Cantu.
Okay.
Cantu Construction. They were like three partners. And so we did move over to the bigger building, right? But by that time, I was already teaching again.
Okay.
And so I was working there in the evenings. This was again 2010 when we made that move. So I was kind of just busy working and trying to make ends meet. And then one of my clients, he decided he wanted to try something. So he wanted to do the model America at Musclemania. I had let myself go. Right? I was probably spending way too much money at Whataburger. And I was like, well, I'm turning 40. I better start behaving myself. So I just started eating healthy. Like, I wasn't trying to eat like a bodybuilder. But I just started eating healthy and I started working out again. And as I'm getting ready throughout the year, because he was someone who needed a lot of time to get ready, I was getting better and better and better. So by the time fall was rolling around, I was like, I think I can join in, at the bodybuilding show, Musclemania again, which I had not done since 2000.
So almost
11 years later.
11 years later.
11 years later. You'll see this repeated pattern over and over and over. And so I actually won the light heavies, but this time it was Musclemania America, not Musclemania. They changed things up. So Americans compete against Americans, and then there's Musclemania World, and then Pro, right? So by winning Musclemania America, I won the light heavies and the overall against a really big heavyweight, Griffin Datcher from Houston, I think, or Spring. And so we both turned pro. And so the following year, I wanted to do my first Musclemania Pro show. And the big names in the game at that time were Ulysses, Simeon Panda, Chul Soon. And so that was a little bit intimidating because they did look amazing. I remember being at the America winning and them being backstage.
Where was the American Parallel?
This one was in Vegas.
Okay, it was in Vegas. The pro show?
In Vegas. They were on top of each other.
Okay.
Yeah, they do a lot of categories. That show is huge. From model to fitness to figure to bikini to like every category you could think of, plus a model's then. So categories that you haven't heard of. And so anyway, 2012, I was dealing with my shoulder. It wasn't working. It wasn't cooperating with me, so I decided not to do it that year. 2013, I started getting ready for the pro world, having gotten a pro card at the 2011 American. But this was not IFBB Pro. This is Musclemania Pro. Very different thing. And so I remember being psyched out because at this point, I guess the internet's already starting to kick in. These guys are celebrities and stuff like that. I was like, and I went back to my old thing, which is I am going to be so striated. So I dieted so hard for that show, which actually dieting hard for me might be different than what I hear other people say. I eat a lot more than they do. Yeah. But basically, I went in, I think I weighed 197 at that show, and I was scrawny. Like, I watched the YouTube video. And
that's usually about, what, 12 pounds less than you used that?
Yeah, I was good 12 pounds lighter than my usual competitive weight. And I got fit. My back lat spread was still a pretty good pose. I felt everything else, I was so shallow. And these guys, Ulysses and Chul, they're like the opposite. Like, they're bubbly, like really big and round. So Ulysses won first and Chul got second. So that was 2013. You could tell I was not enjoying myself on stage if you watch. Like, I'm just so serious, like straight face or whatever. And I think it's because of the intimidation that
got to your head.
Got to me. And so then about a year or two later, I'm thinking I stayed super lean during this. That might have been a mistake. From when I won 2011 to when I competed in 2013, I might not have gotten to double digits on body fat. Like I was almost contest ready for all those years. And my test levels were in the gutter. Like I was measuring 172 and stuff like that.
Sure.
And
So
I
you were
remember,
too lean, too
yeah,
long.
my doctor was suggesting that maybe I could go on TRT, but I couldn't because I was doing the Musclemania shows. So I held off and held off and held off. And yeah, I learned later, that dude, you can't stay that lean and expect your testosterone to be okay. So yeah, so I even questioned how important is testosterone because I was muscular. Like you would think I was on stuff. I was muscular, but just thinner, right?
I think it's
And
the diet also play a
yeah,
part,
yeah,
and keeping your muscle.
yeah. So yeah, because I've always been militant almost with making sure I eat the way I should. And so, yeah, I was able to.
I wanted to ask, what happened to your shoulder? Like, was
And
it a bad injury, or was just
it was just like I couldn't do any pressing overhead. And as it is, my back is pretty wide. So that kind of makes my shoulders and arms look like these little things dangling off the end. And then when I couldn't do the rotations and stuff like that, like it was painful to me. I was doing internal external. And
so you don't recall how you messed it up or how you hurt it, or
it was
just a nagging
all of my injuries have been like mysteries. Like, and they mysteriously clear up on their own too. I've never had to get surgery or anything like that. I'll have like IT band that bothers me for a couple of months and then it's gone. I'll have shoulder bother me and elbow bother me. And somehow it always just kind of clears up on its own. I probably could have been more proactive about it and going to see professionals and stuff like that. But I've always kind of neglected that side of the sport. I didn't do a lot of rehab, uh, rolling, foam rolling, all that. I didn't do any of that stuff. I've just been.
we're old school.
Yeah.
That.
So
When you what's your place after all that?
I ended up getting fifth in 2013. I ended up beating Marcus Reinhardt, who had beaten me in 2000, and he got his pro card back in 2000. So that was a feather in my cap. But then some news came out, some rumors or whatever, that a lot of these guys in Musclemania, that they had evidence that these guys were not, they shouldn't be passing the drug test, but I guess they were. And so it just kind of left me feeling like, if you're going to use, you're going to use. That's fine. It don't bother me at all. I don't use. But not at a drug tested show, right?
Well, I think because when I started bodybuilding, when I was into it, Musclemania was supposed to be natural at that time, and you could see the quality. And then you will see, like I said, the New Year's coming up, and you're like, don't look the same. But I agree, man. I always said that if you're gonna do a natural show, be
Do
natural.
it legit. Okay.
That's
And-
literally cheating to me.
And so I will say that I had always given Musclemania the benefit of the doubt because in '99 I benefited from the drug test, right? They bumped me up 2 places. But that was not happening now. And I think there was just some discontent among some of the competitors. So that those rumors started coming out. And I just kind of lost. I was like, I don't want to be part of this anymore. So I left going again, but for that reason. And then another buddy of mine. So we're talking 2015. I did not compete 2014. I was just trying to stay in shape. And another buddy of mine, he decides he wants to try a men's physique show for the first time. So I helped him get ready for it, and he won. Right? He looked really well. His name is Isaac Diaz. Isaac, you need to keep competing, man. And great abs, like, oh my gosh, blocks for days. And so after he won that show, he's like, now I want to do the Phil Heath next year, but I want you to do it with me. Like you do the bodybuilding and I do the men's physique. It's like, all right,
I'm in.
I'm in, right? You don't have to twist my arm. And so I made my return to the NPC in 2016. The last time I competed was 2009, right? So 7 years later.
Yeah, quite some time.
And so the Phil Heath at that time was a bit competitive.
That was the big show.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger ones. That one in Europa, Texas, right? Those seem to be the main ones. And so I ended up winning the heavies. I weighed 211. I think I weighed 211 or 212 at that show. And I won. And I remember some big guy in the audience, he's like, dude, you're supposed to be in classic. I was like, I can't make the weight. Like, I tried to do classic.
Well, it just that's the first year it started.
Yeah, so the weights were even lower.
They're way lower, yeah.
And so I think I was only allowed to weigh 192 or 197. It's depending on how they hide it.
I think 192 at the time.
And so, and I weighed in at 211 or so. So I'm like, yeah, I'm about 12 pounds off. And I'm already I wasn't the leanest I've ever been, but I was pretty damn lean. Striations and everything. And the glutes. So I was like, man, do I want to 11 pounds just to make a class that I'm not sure of. So I just did the bodybuilding, ended up winning it, both the open and the overall, open heavy and overall. And so that was, guess, the thing that got me back on track again, right? And you would think by this time, you're like, yeah, enough of this, right? Just like repeat. But the thing is, every time I step away from it, it's still with me, right? And I'm always just curious how I don't need to be the popular guy. I don't need to be the celebrity. I don't need to be the Ulysses or someone famous on Instagram. But how do I measure up? Like, I'm always curious, like, how can I hang? Kind of thing, right? So I like to quietly go and do these shows. And so I did, the next year, I did the same thing that happened back when I won the Texas in 2006. I went to Nationals in 2007. This time I won the Phil Heath in 2016, and I went to North Americans the next year. And so I think I was 46 at the time. And, another instance. I heard about you, right?
Because I got it 2016 at the North Americans.
Yes.
That's where I got my
So I was like, I'm all jazzed up again because another of my buddies is making it, right? And so I got so amped over that. And so I was like, I'm going to do the North Americans. And so I ended up weighing 212 at that show. Really, really leaned out. But again, in the open heavies, I think I got 12th or 13th out of probably 30-some guys. So, all right, but 46-year-old, I was like, well, I guess. And a lot of heavies. But I also did the over 40. And I got 6th in that group. What was interesting to me was there was another guy who did both divisions. And he beat me by 1 place in the open. But I beat him by like 5 places in the over 40. I was like, how does that work? They were literally 15 minutes apart from each other, as far as this being.
It happened in ours too, but I think a lot of it too is just, some people fade on stage, and that's our taking away. Yeah, going to fade on stage.
So, in any event, so that was another humbling experience. It seemed like every time I got up to that national level, it was just not there. Like, I didn't have the size. In the heavyweight class, I guess, the size just becomes outrageous. And so I was like, all right, so what can I do? And so it's like, let me get another qualification, right? Because you have to qualify. I don't remember what the rules were.
Well, you still get a year. So if you got it 2016, you qualified 2016, 2017. And so then you always have a year extra.
So I think in 2018, I kind of had to do it.
You had to there, yeah.
So I did the Europa. And outside of the Texas 2009, I would say the 2018 Europa is where I got my gnarliest and pretty damn big. I weighed the same, 217.
But conditioning was,
oh my gosh. But some of it could be the HD photography. Like, if you look, oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't know if I actually look like that. It looks cartoonish. But I won that show, the heavy and the overall. There was a guy, I want to say his name is Jeff Leader. He won the super heavyweights. He turned pro like a week or two after that. and I was on a cruise at the time. So I was like, man, every time this happens, right? So many guys that turn pro that I'd be, I had told you prior that I had eventually gotten revenge from Lorenzo.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't direct revenge, but 2009 when I won the Texas, he actually did not win his division. So I'm guessing he just missed his mark or something like that. Maybe there's another guy who's pretty good. But in all respect, Lorenzo, he was a thorn in my side from 2000. So, and I heard he had turned pro. Probably back at the beginning of the classic and all that kind of stuff. You know what you?
I don't remember, but I think he did turn. I think he turned after me. I think.
Yeah. So in any event, so I did the 2018. That was in July, and so I started looking at that. I think that's when they started splitting up IFBB and like another IFBB league or whatever.
Elites.
And so Mexico was holding IFBB shows that were open to NPC competitors. And so I did the Monterey show, IFBB Monterey in October of that year.
And that was actually a pro qualifier, right?
It was a pro qualifier, although you had to win the overall.
Yeah.
And so I got second in the heavies there. It was back and forth. They had me in the middle. They had the other guy in the middle. Again, an apples and oranges thing. I was taller, maybe a little more aesthetic. He was shorter, stockier, thicker. And the third place guy was a monster. His name was Josué Plasencia. He's an IFBB pro now. I don't know if he's doing the tapping this week. Might be. Big guy, at least 6'2", maybe 6'3". And at that show, he told me he weighed 263. So I was like, he was gargantuan. Actually, I'd seen him the year before at North Americans, and he was big back then too. And I was so surprised that I was able to come out on top.
Your condition took him out.
Right. And so, and then he turned pro the following year at that Monterey show. But what got to me was I'm still not big enough, right? So I was like, I'm doing one more go. It's 2019. And so I do the IFBB Mexico Super Show that summer of 2019. And it was in Guadalajara.
How did you hear about those shows?
Internet.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think I might have heard of it from Isaac, the guy who got me back into it.
Okay.
He might have been the one who mentioned it to me, and so I started looking it up, right? And so I was like, all right, here's another chance to get pro. So I went for more size that year. I weighed in at the heaviest I've ever weighed in, which was 222. I was super happy at the show, thinking this is the biggest I've ever been. And I placed third. Josué got second. Carlos Rodriguez, who's a 212 pro now, he won. He had a great set of legs. And so I think structurally, maybe I was a little bit better as far as the shoulder to waist kind of thing. But, man, was I bloated. Like, my skin didn't look the same. And I was like, I do not like this look. So trying to be 222.
Trying to be too heavy.
I was trying to play the size game, and it burned me. And it was something that I didn't really realize at the show. It was something I realized in reviewing the pictures afterwards. I was like, wow, I did not look like I thought I did. I thought I looked better than this. So I consider myself pretty objective. And I usually do know where I'm placing. It's amazing. Like at the North Americans, as I'm like scanning everybody, I'm like, I think I'm probably like 12th or 13th. And that's what I was, right? And I'd even shared that with my family over the phone. But like, you're not giving yourself enough credit. I'm like, no, I see these guys. I know what's going on.
You gotta be real.
Yeah.
You gotta be real. You know, and sometimes you see the quality, and then you're like, okay, no.
Yeah. Although some guys do surprise you. Like Stan McQuaid, when I met him at the Musclemania, standing in front of me, he didn't seem like a very big guy, right? Of course, he was covered up though. But man, when he got on stage, he opened up. Holy moly! I was like, that guy's a freak. Like, it's crazy. Which he gave me a lot of good feedback recently. Made me very happy. So yeah, that was, and then COVID hit, right? So I I was trying to work out in my garage a little bit. I was retired. I had told my wife I retired again. Right?
For the what? Yeah, so I was like, for the 16.
And so then I heard about the Masters shows, the Masters USA, and I was like, I'm turning 50. This is last year, 2021. I'm turning 50. Let me go get my blood work done, make sure I'm healthy and everything like that. So in March of 2021, I get that done. Everything comes back good. It's like I turned 50 in September. Masters USA is December. I'm going to go ahead and do the Texas again. Do the Open there to see how I hang. And then I'm going to push through to the Masters USA and see if I can get my card there. And so I weighed in at that check-in at 204 pounds.
At the Texas?
No, at the March health check-in, because remember, COVID happened.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wasn't bodybuilding there. So I'm naturally going to be lighter. Weight will come off if I'm not forcing the food. And so when I weighed in and got my blood work done, I only weighed 204, and I was not ripped. You could maybe see my
204 with like 18, 20%?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the percent was, but it wasn't good. And so, man, I went back full bore, and I was able to get to the Texas. I weighed 215, probably close to my best condition ever. And I got second in the heavies. A guy named Horatio Fair, he won the heavies. I think he's from the Dallas area. He's a firefighter or something like that. He's like 270 now or 2-ish. He's a big guy. He was just a little bit taller than me, a little bit wider than me. I think my condition was slightly better than his, but structurally he's better than I am. And just outsized me a little bit. And so I did win the Masters at the Texas, and I got second in the Open Heavies. So we wished each other luck. We saw each other at breakfast the next day. We chose, the same breakfast place, I guess, there in Austin. This was the show that being run now by Bernadette. It's one of her shows. And so I decided to do the Masters USA, or I had already decided it was in the works. And so I got down 3 more pounds between the Texas show and the Masters USA. I got down to 212. I weighed 215 for the Texas. And maybe I was tighter. It's hard to both pictures. The photographs nowadays are so much more
digital.
It's very
precise. Yeah,
it can be misleading. Like, Jesus, I can't believe the condition I'm getting into, because probably more of the photographs than anything. And so I ended up winning the heavy, over 50 heavy, and the overall 50. And I was surprised. There was actually a couple of guys over 50 who were decent, like wow, you wouldn't know. But then there's also a lot of guys that weren't that strong. There's just a couple. When you're in the over 40, there's still a lot of hosses.
35, 40. Yeah.
But so I did get feedback from certain people there, and Stan McQuay, I don't know if you remembered me or not, but he's like, you're the guy from the over 50, because you're going to take it. He goes, and then he just gave me a little tip on how to pose my back, which I don't know if I did it right or not. But he basically told me, you're going to take the whole thing. And so that made me feel good that he recognized what I was doing there. And so, in any event, I got the pro card. I
remember Ruben texted me that same day.
Yeah.
He got it. He got his pro card. I go, damn, that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Out of the whole life bodybuilding career, you've prepped yourself.
Yes.
You've never had a coach. You've had a couple of helps here and there, but how would you say you started off with, so where you're at now, what have you learned the most? Or has it been mainly the same? Has you changed anything? What have you learned throughout your body throughout the years of
So
competing?
definitely I had no clue what I was doing in the beginning, right? And so my first sources of information were magazines, which a little bit better than what I had started off with. Also, my first workout routines were off Arnold's Encyclopedia, right? Which is probably way too high volume for me. But basically, I would say the information age, with the internet and stuff, has made it possible for me to read so much. I am constantly reading and stealing information from other places, so to speak, and applying, testing, and seeing what doesn't work. I know that there's certain things that they talk about that doesn't work for me, like the whole old school 3 to 4 days of carb depleting that last week and then trying to load up. That makes me lose like
The volume.
all my weight, all my volume, my shoulders, my everything shrinks up so much in 2 or 3 days of depletion. There's no way I can recover it the last couple of days of the week. So I've learned that yes, I drop my carbs down, but I'm not going to go zero carb. And that's just from personal experience. Like I had to, well, even though it was a good outing, the 2009 Texas, remember I weighed 231 a week out and weighed in at 217. That's a 14-pound drop. Like how the heck? But I did do the full blown 4 days of depletion, and that probably just
Do you think you have a fast metabolism? That's
so
your
yes and no. Um, I will say every diet works. At least every diet I've ever tried works. But I don't know if that's due to my metabolism or my ability to adhere consistently. Right? Like if I'm going to do a diet, I'm going to do it, right? And I keep the main thing, which is are my calories at the right level, right? For what I'm doing. And so when people say, oh, this diet didn't work or that diet didn't, well, chances are you didn't make it work.
stick with it.
And so in that sense, I would say my metabolism works. I do have the ability to get fat. Like I have people that I know that whatever they eat, which maybe they don't eat that much. It's just when I see them, they're eating nothing but junk. Right? They don't get fat no matter what, right? Um, but for me, if I cut loose, I will be fat. Like maybe not like 400 pounds kind of thing, but I will get pretty heavy. So I can't say that it's just straight up fast fat.
Out of the whole 30 years that you've been in the game, it's changed a little. Now the new generation is a little different from the old generation. What have you seen more that has changed a lot? And us that we started back then, we kind of have to adapt to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely the whole social media thing, which I have not done a good job.
Yeah,
One,
I just noticed you barely started getting into it.
yeah, so and that was actually Weapon X who got me to do that. So it happened once before. When I turned pro with Musclemania, Lou's Wick, the producer, he was like, "We want us to give you all this money and this and that. Because you all need to learn to promote yourselves as a product, and you need to get your Instagram started and all that kind of stuff." That was a meeting he had with the pros. I'm the teacher, and it just turned out that when I tried Instagram that time, immediately I started getting students on my page, and I was like,
It's not good.
it's not probably the best for me, right? So I trashed it at that time. I was like, I don't need to make money from it. This is just something I do out of love, right? So then recently, when I won the pro card, I'm coming back from Arizona, and Weapon X is on there. Which you know who that is? He is a 212 competitor. And he's
Well, that's right. Okay.
Derek Austin.
Derek, yes.
Yeah. And he was on there. He had been at the show meeting up with, I think, the whole team that's with Stan McQuay on them, right? And he was getting feedback on what he needed to do for this year competitively. And so he happened to be on a plane ride, so he made friends, and he asked me for my Instagram. Look, I don't have one. He's like, "What? You need to get one." So I was like, "All right." So I went ahead and made one, and all I've really done on it is what I did today, kind of like a history review of my career. And I started to show on stories my current prep because I am going to compete this year. But I can't get myself to take selfies. I can't. I'm just not that guy. It's hard for me to.
I guess because we had that mindset. When we go to the gym, we go to the gym.
Yeah, I put my phone to the side.
So I've heard and learned to also adapt after I got my pro card. I didn't do it, no. And I started to think, man, if I would have like done what a lot of the fitness influencers did, the journey to it, the journey to the pro card and the YouTube and the social media, but yeah, I didn't start it till like after I got my pro card. Same way.
So it's and I'm never going to use it for money making. It's not anything like that. Again, for me, it's just testing myself against others. So again, that's what I'm doing this year. I'm going to compete as an IFBB Pro this time. I'm making the switch to classic physique because I know the difference between a pro open bodybuilder at my height. I would have to be heavier on stage than I've probably ever been off season.
And
right?
even 212. I mean, you're just too tall for 212.
212. Yeah. And so I'm making the switch to classic. Totally new concept for me. I'm a little bit worried about it. I have to be lighter. I think I'm not as tall as I thought I was. I'm only 5'9" and 3/4 now. So I think I have to get down to 207, which I know I can get there, but I know that's not my best look. And so I'm thinking about trying to make myself taller. I don't know if it's going to work or not.
If it works, let me know.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same way. I'm 5'6", 3/4. Like 5'7" is the next weight class.
Yeah.
Which is a 7-pound difference because my 185 to 192.
Yeah.
That makes a difference.
I don't need to weigh all of the 215. If I weigh 212 or 213, that'll look so much better than if I weigh 207.
And it's not a big transition. The posing is the same. I think a lot of it is just you get the classic poses. You got to practice those.
Yeah, I'm horrible while practicing coaching.
A lot of it is, I mean, you're not doing your most muscular no more. You're not doing your front lat or rear lat. In the judging, but you can throw it into your routine. But yeah, So my advice to you is just practice some of those classics. See what your body looks good at which classic pose. Don't just do it because it's a classic pose.
So like I'm in the midst of, I've been practicing my vacuums. That's the one thing I haven't tried. And I've gotten so much better at them within the past month or whatever. Also just getting leaner, I think also has made it more enjoyable to see when I was a little bit heavier. Like the vacuum.
It's tough. It's hard.
It's hard on, I don't want to see it. Like, oh my gosh. But I'm not sure if I look better with the vacuum or if I look better with the abs down.
My thing is that's another thing too. Is like I don't think vacuum must be classic because some bodies does look better with it. Some bodies don't look right.
Right.
So I'm saying my advice is just see both of them, take a picture of both of them, and see which one your body looks ideally better. Because don't do a vacuum if it doesn't make you look balanced.
Right.
So that's one thing too. But practice it, which will be good. Also help control your core.
Right.
But yeah, same thing with the classic. I've seen some guys try to do a classic pose, and you're like, it doesn't look right for you.
Yeah.
So you got to find one that does look for you.
So again,
you're how many weeks out now?
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
And I weigh about 218, 219 first thing in the morning after I've used the restroom and everything like that. So, and I'm already getting close. I know that I have another 5 pounds to lose before I'm pretty much where I want to be. Then I'll have to decide if I have to push that extra weight out somehow that last week. The reason I'm doing it is because, one, I heard on another podcast that if you win your pro card but you never compete as a pro, then you're not really a pro. So I was like, all right, I'll take that. And then the other thing was, again, I got my pro card at the Masters USA. And it's just like this thing that's itching at me. Like, I want to show that I'm not just an over 50 high level bodybuilder. I'm a high level bodybuilder.
Then you want to stand with the top. I agree.
So, and if I get my butt kicked, great, I got my answer, right? I'll be like, okay, and I can walk away knowing where I stood, right? I'll never know what could have been because I was doing all this back and forth, hemming and hawing. What if I put everything in throughout consistently through the 90s and stuff like that? I don't know what would happen. Probably I would have. It was tougher to turn pro back then, right? So maybe nothing would have been different.
But it's like you just said, the consistency.
Yeah.
Where would your body been without those retirement years? Like where could you have taken your physique?
Right.
What level would have been at this time? But I think even throughout the whole 30 years that you've been in the game, I mean, you still staying somewhat consistent, and you've managed to still bring it. Even after all these years.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like I've had a good life both as a bodybuilder and outside of bodybuilding. So I wouldn't trade it. But the question does remain.
And now like with social media, there's a lot of people that like, oh, I want to be a bodybuilder. I want to get my pro card. Body at your gym, where you work at anywhere right now?
So I train my clients at Ari.
Okay,
It's a little bit more upscale. It's not a real big gym, but it's very clean, very nice environment. And sometimes I'll work out there, and then I also have a membership at Gold's.
Okay.
And so I'll go to the various Golds depending on what body part. So like if you want to hit the front of your legs really hard, you got to go to the Golds on the south side of McAllen.
Right.
Yeah, they got this new.
The one on Ridge?
They have the Atlantis half. They have a pendulum squat.
Okay.
They have a vertical leg press, which you almost never see anymore. And so those were all moves that I was missing, right? If you go to either the Sherryland Golds or the one on Dove, they have the belt squat. That's interesting. Along with multiple leg presses and hack squats and stuff. The Golds in Edinburgh has a little bit less in terms of equipment, but it's more of a clean facility. The one on Dove can be pretty old school.
Well, that's the original one, right?
Yeah. Also, they got the 150-pound dumbbells there, stuff like that. So if you want to get British, you can.
Do you have any of these young guys come up to you and ask for your advice? And what advice could you give those guys? That want to get into the bodybuilding lifestyle? Because I think we both have a different mindset than you guys now.
Right. So, I guess number one is, are you sure this is something you really want, and do you understand what's involved? Right. Now, if they're gung ho and it's like, this is what I want, then I would say that they can't be back and forth on their consistency in training, the consistency in eating, and like only when I'm thinking about doing a show do I start hitting it hard. I've seen guys like you excel, Aaron excel, but then I've seen a whole lot of guys that they're just wavering in mediocrity from competitive season to competitive season. It's because they're like, I'm from Jay Cutler's channel, part-time bodybuilders.
I call them seasonal
bodybuilders. There you go.
Because off season is where it's your ideally to grow, get feedback, and improve what you got to improve,
right,
and bring that next time.
Right.
They don't do that. Right. But then, like you said, like they get the edge. I'm going to do a show again, but then they go back
3 months out from a show. So let me get
a prep. Yeah.
And it's like, so you never get better from year to year, right? And I felt like I saw a consistent improvement for me outside of the retirements, because I was off season, pre-contest. I was all about it. Like I was gonna push hard. So I think that's what helped me progress the way I did. And so that's the thing. They need to understand what that means. No, you can't go party with your friends every weekend.
Here. Yeah. Go preach it, man. Because I try to tell some of these clients or something.
And then some of them will ask me about like the PEDs and stuff like that. I'm like, can you tell me what you ate today? And like, oh, I had a burrito from PetSmart. And I'm like, dude, you have no business asking about PEDs if you're not getting everything else taken care of, right? I guess so.
100%.
They all think it's the quick and easy stuff. And if it were easy, everybody would look like this, right? It is 24 hours difficult. one of the most difficult things I do. But I love it, right? So I'm willing to, right? And I do get tired. There's some times where I want that break or whatever, right? But it doesn't take long. There's so many times where, like, deep into the contest prep, like, man, when this show is over,
You're done.
I'm done, right? And I'm going to eat anything and everything for a month or whatever. I usually last 2, maybe 3 days, and I'm like,
That's enough.
no more. I need to get back to eating my food, training, stuff like that. I can't be away from the gym for more than 2, even after a show. A lot of times I want to go the very next day. So yeah, you got to be all about it.
Do you have a special tradition after a show, like a special meal that you always eat all the time, or is something traditional that
I
you do?
mean, I have my basic food groups or whatever. Like as far as I love bacon cheeseburgers, especially like all bangers. I love botanas. I'm okay with pizza. I used to love pizza a lot more when I was a kid, but that. And then I do like Reese's peanut butter cups, like inside blizzards, stuff like that. But usually, at least in recent years, maybe when I was an early competitor, I was more about that. In recent years, I can almost care less about where we're going. And my family and my friends are the ones who are all excited. They're like, where we're going? Cheat meal. Like, ain't none of you dieting for the past 3 months. What do you mean cheat meal? We're gonna go somewhere with you. Let's go. They're more excited about the meal than I am. Usually at that point, I'm just like, I need Gatorade, I need water, and I'm gonna enjoy some food, right? And it's the ensuing days after that, not the night of the show, but I might go ham on things that I don't normally eat, Monday and Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But usually I'm tapped out.
I agree. It's true. Like when my first early years, yeah, it was like, oh, I had this and I had that, with this, with it, you know. And then the last preps I did, it was like, oh, I have a little bit of this. Let me just. I was more
So
tired. I just want to sleep, man.
yeah, sleep, just hydration, all
Yeah.
that stuff. And I will say, there's things that I've seen, like some competitors get really lean, and then 2 months after the show, they're blown up. Like you would not know that they competed recently, right? And so I do think that that's something I had to learn, and it just had enough negative experiences with gaining all that weight in my early years, post show, that then I was able to reel it back in. But I've seen some people who can't escape it, right? And it's almost like an eating
Well,
disorder.
I think a lot of it is it fucks with their head. I mean,
Yeah.
because gaining 20, 30 pounds in a week or two,
Yeah,
you know,
it's harsh.
and then you're trying to get back into the routine. Your body won't let you right
No,
away.
your ankles are swollen,
Yeah.
you can't move, lower back hurts, whatever. And so, and I think one of the things is just being able to tell yourself after the show, I don't have to eat everything that I've been missing out on in this first week. I've got all the time in the world to slowly enjoy each thing. So this coming Saturday, I'm going to have the burger. Next Wednesday, I might end up having tacos or whatever. But it's like some people are feeling so deprived during their diet, which there are some diets out there that I don't agree with. They're way low calorie, and I think that leads to that type of deprivation. I eat everything. Like I'm not exclusionary, like, oh, carb phobic or fat phobic or whatever. I eat fruits all the way up to the show. People used to be afraid of fruit with sugar. So I never really feel deprived. I do feel depleted. I don't feel deprived. And so that allows me to be a little bit more normal about it when I return. For those people who are doing nothing but tuna and veggies or something like that, to lose all that weight, yeah, it's bound to bounce back bad. You're gonna just try to make it
So
for everything.
reverse dieting is key. Yeah, go to right. So are we going to see you more times, or you think it's going to be just you just want to do this one pro show and see how you stack up, or
It
depending on
It depends on
how
what
how you
happens,
place?
right? So let's say I get crushed. I don't know how many pro classic guys are going to be there, but let's say there's 15 guys and 15th, 14th, something like that. I'm probably done. right? Because I know I'm going to bring my condition the way I need to, and it'll just be the writings on the wall, just not at that level, right? But in my place, first, second, third, especially first, I don't know if it qualifies for the Olympia or not.
Yeah, first is qualification.
So,
Top five, making it top five in the pro show is big. But yeah, you win your first, you get your goal.
So then that might make me decide to stick around, for a little bit more. So it's really based on that. It has to be like first, second, third. Pretty much anything beyond fifth, I'm like, yeah, I brought my best, and it's just not there. Because the San Antonio show, it's not a ranking show, but it's not. I don't think it's the top.
Or it's not a tier one.
It's not a tier one show.
No, it's not a tier two, but it's a.
I think it'll be a good measuring stick for me to decide, can I stick around? No, I don't. And the other thing is, being turning 51 pretty soon, I know I'm not as good as I once was, right? And I don't know how much longer my body will cooperate with me and getting in shape. So far, so good, right?
Yeah.
But I also need to look at returning to some level of normalcy. I don't need to be 230 pounds as a 51-year-old, right? I should probably get my weight down under 200, still be fit and muscular and stuff like that, but start thinking about my organ health and being a little bit lighter so that my organs aren't strained. Because whether you're overweight due to muscle or you're overweight due to fat, that puts an extra strain on you. Right? And the amount of eating I have to do cannot be good for me.
How many calories are you taking?
So it's hard to say right now because I don't really count calories anymore. I just know how much I eat every day and I make adjustments accordingly. But when I did used to track it, even during Musclemania days, a diet day, like the lowest I ever hit was 3,600. And typically I was running 38 to 4,000, but very active. Like I'm awake at 4, go to bed close to 10 or 11. So I have to do a lot of that eating to make up for how little I sleep. Yeah. Sleep is an important thing. That's probably the worst. That's the worst part of my program. Sleeping. So it's probably why I have to eat some to make up for it.
Well, I want to wish you luck, man, for your first pro debut.
Thank you, man.
In 7 weeks, San Antonio Classic. Not sure I'll be there, but I'm sure you on, so you get that experience. All I can say is, man, and just enjoy it, man.
Yeah.
Do your thing. Don't let the backstage guys get to you.
Yeah.
Just do your things. Stick with your mind and get the game plan going and and hit it on. Because you're gonna see guys that you follow or know, and it can mess with your head a little bit. Yeah. So just don't do that. Just go in there with your game plan and kill it, man. I will. So, like I said, I looked up to him. I'm glad he got his pro card because he's one guy I knew could get his pro card. When I started bodybuilding. So having 2 IFBB pros, here in the valley, it's a big thing. And I know hopefully in the future, there's some more out there, But I just think, like they said, man, put in the work, take your time, and get it done. I mean, it's a different mindset, different way of thinking. If that's your main goal to do. So until next time, make sure you guys follow us at Texas Bodybuilding News for coaching. Coach Jason Martinez, my team, Team Jack. So until next time, get that last rep in, stay healthy. Peace. If you guys interested in the great line of supplements, go ahead and check out Jack Factory. Links in description. Use my code, Jason. You can save 15%. Let me tell you about the stack I love. I love taking my Nitro Surge and I combine it with the NOXT. Get hell of a pumps, great energy, great workout. Love it. They got your pre-workouts, protein, fat burners, essentials. So go check them out. Use my code Jason, save 15%. Thank you.